Hello, everyone. It's time for the ReQuest. It's me, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is Austin, the Day Ghost. Hello, Austin. I'm sorry. I think you have to. I think you have to wait like 2 full seconds after you put it down so we can hear you. Yeah, you got wait a little longer.
Whoops.
That was very awkward.
It was awkward. Let's start over.
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ReQuest. It's me, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is Austin, the Day Ghost.
Damn it.
That was only funny if you were actually watching. Tonight, Austin and I are going to tackle recent comics, something we haven't done in a little while. And Spider-Man Spider's Shadow was requested by Elliot Slater on Patreon. Thanks a lot to him. And as always, quick plug for Patreon, patreon.com/geekvolution. That's how you can request things here for the ReQuest, $15 tier. And you do comics and movies and pilots for TV shows. Always fun to get back to comics. And we've been reviewing quite a bit in the way of comics lately between this and the Vault. Finally got the Vault coming back, and so I don't know, Austin, I'm feeling like a comic book fan again.
I know, it's crazy. We've done so much comics.
This is part of, and I think maybe the start of, of Marvel's new What If initiative, which, shocker, started in 2021, around the same time as the TV show did. Naturally, they started putting out more What If comics. I kind of like this idea, the sort of like prestige format, or not prestige format. I kind of actually, it would be cool if they did it that way, where they had like, you know, bigger issues, like issue lengths, and they did like the Black Label thing where you got a What If, it was in like 3 or 4 issues, it was like 50 pages an issue. That would have been cool. But they're doing them with miniseries instead of singular issues now, so you ostensibly have more real estate to work with, and you don't have to tell as truncated of stories. And I don't know how many of these they've done so far. I didn't look real deep to see what else had come after this. I did check to see if there was a sequel to this, because there is kind of sequel bait at the end of this. And there hasn't been, except for apparently one little short story in a one-shot somewhere that wasn't written by Chip Zdarsky and that nobody liked. So I don't know if they'll ever get back to this and kind of retcon that and say that doesn't count. And I didn't read whatever that was, but apparently they did kind of do a follow-up to the Kingpin thing that they tease at the end of this, and it was apparently not satisfactory to people. So
good to know. Yeah, I wondered that too, if there was a sequel to this. But I didn't look it up. The
way it reads to me, and the sequel bait thing at the end, I'll just start there, and then we'll talk about what this book is about, is a little bit gimmicky to me, because it reads like, because Marvel's had some success with alternate universes and characters that start in like a one-shot or a miniseries that are from some other wacky, different kind of Elseworlds type or What If type universe, and then that gets really popular, and so then they start doing a bunch more stories about them and a bunch more minis, and sometimes they come into 616 and just become mainstream, like Spider-Gwen, like, you know, I was gonna say Gwen Logan. I was gonna say Gwenpool, but I guess that kind of starts in regular continuity anyway. But Old Man Logan is one of those. Yeah, absolutely. And so this read exactly like they were trying to do kind of a backdoor thing. Well, and like Spider-Man Noir is kind of like that. 2099 is that way at this point.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Where he had a whole run where he's trapped in our time period.
And like, so many of the stuff, it's like you take them out of the interesting part.
Yeah.
The world.
Yeah, exactly. And even outside of Marvel, a lot lately, and it's been a lot of these kind of, like you said with Old Man Logan, just, you know, decades later sequels, or like Old Man or Old Woman, whoever kinds of stories. But we also like to take a thing like that and like make it its own thing and keep pumping out like sequel after sequel after sequel. So we've done that now with Last Ronin, and we've done it with White Knight, and
Reign is getting a sequel, Spider-Man Reign.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
That has Old Man Miles in it, because of course it does.
Of course it does. If we review that, I'll have to reread Reign. I don't remember much about it except it's wacky and weird and grossed people out. I remember it grossed people out. Yeah, didn't you request it? And then you and I ended up doing it together.
No, I just requested this. That was like long
Back
before
before I knew
we were
you.
doing it together. Yeah, that was
Okay,
my second request. I think it was Guardians, and then that.
Austin, it all runs together, man.
Hmm
Well,
I
and
read that book when I was like 10, and I was like, this is weird.
reviewing with you has been a double-edged sword because on the one hand, I've got a co-host to do all these things with, and I don't have to be a lone wolf. But on the other hand, because you're no longer paying for requests, I don't make any money anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Spider Shadow, if this is the start of this new What If initiative, it is a little bit odd that they begin with a premise that has been done in What If before and very, very early. Although maybe that was kind of the idea was, well, let's go revisit a thing, but again, expand upon it and go in a totally different direction with it. And so the first time this was done, and I haven't read this in a long time, and I don't remember how it ends. I meant to go back and look at that before tonight, and I did not get a chance to do that. But it's like the fourth issue of the first volume, and it's what if the alien costume possessed Spider-Man, which is curious because it did. But I think that is still kind of this premise of what if he kept the black costume, and so this is straight up not what if Spider-Man became Venom, because I thought that's where this was going to go, but it's more just what if he hung on to the alien costume, and it does like monkey with him more and get closer to bonding with him and affect his behavior, and he does straight up murder people in this because he's got the black costume, but he doesn't become full-on Venom, arguably.
Yeah, and that's what I thought the premise of this book was, so I was a little surprised when it wasn't. But we like start to go that route.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that because because it feels like there's a novelty to look how violent we're gonna go with this, and it seems like the audience is supposed to be, simultaneously freaked out, but also kind of like enjoying getting to see Spider-Man go full on, horrible villain and embrace a kind of horrifying ideology where we do a really messed up mirror of the power and responsibility message. And then it becomes really clear about halfway through that Peter Parker is going to be able to be redeemed in this.
When it's funny, I think we talked about this because we did a little bit of what if, and I think we talked a little bit about how they weren't fully willing to go certain places, like killing off characters and whatnot in old school what if. And I feel like we've almost flipped the switch too much at this point with what you're saying. Like I feel like every alternate universe thing is like, look how edgy and cool we are. Like we're brutalizing all these characters you love, and I think it has no shock value anymore. Not that I'm saying it's good or bad in this book. I'm just saying like that is a thing that I think with a lot of these kind of stories at this point.
Yeah, I'm not yet, until we really get into it, passing judgment so much as just reporting what I saw right now.
Yeah, no, same here.
I agree with you. I think we're in a place now where that stuff doesn't really hit you like it would have when we censored that stuff more, or maybe that's not even the right word, but there were just places we weren't really, like you said, willing to go with it. Where now it's not impressive because I've been there and done that enough. Like once you've had like Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, like all bets are kind of off. And then at all, Old Man Logan, etc. The original Old Man Logan, and then secondly, that they're allowed to do this stuff. And not only are they allowed to, but Editorial probably encourages it to some degree because
they want those big moments.
It's going to sell books, and
and both companies do it. This isn't just a Marvel thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think comics in general do this. Like Last Ronin is also kind of that.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I'm not really like condemning it. I just think like I do think some of that's kind of lost its value.
Yeah, and it does have to be a bit more than that. And I will say it was curious in this because at some point the switch is flipped and it feels very concerned with bringing things back to as classic and traditional Marvel as it can get them.
What I
And
did like in how it starts like that, because then I went, okay, so we're gonna kind of just do like a killing spree across the Marvel universe, and then it stops. So like, it is also kind of going against that to a degree too.
yeah, we'll talk about it.
Mhm.
I'm on the fence about some things with this book. So,
Sure.
Spider Shadow, it is 5 issues. It is a very quick read. It's not going to take you more than an hour to breeze through it. I went ahead and read it twice because it was pretty easy to at least thumb back through it. But it was pretty easy to look at a second time. And also, why don't you go ahead and give us a quick synopsis for this book? Where we start, where the arguable diverging point is, if we can even really say that, because I feel like we're kind of starting with a universe that is maybe just slightly tweaked in the first place, where it isn't, because a true what if to me is, and what if's cheated with this sometimes, but a true what if to me was everything happens, and I've given the speech before, but we're in this territory again, so I have to mention this again real briefly. But a true what if to me is everything in the original continuity happens up to a point, and then a character makes a different choice, and then everything can happen differently after that. I don't know that that's exactly what we have here.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so this book is like right in the middle of the kind of Black Suit saga where Peter's going to see Reed Richards. And instead of going there, there's a big attack by the hobgoblins. So he goes along into that, and it leads to him having it a little bit longer before he goes to see Reed. So it's bonded with him a little bit more, and then he's not as willing to get rid of it. So he keeps the black suit, and it makes him more aggressive, and he becomes almost like a Punisher Spider-Man, where it's like kind of venomy, but not fully. And he's just going around killing all these villains. And Jameson unites the Sinister Six to kill Spider-Man, and they attempt to do that, but then Jameson learns that Peter is Spider-Man. But in their attack, they remove the black suit from Peter, and then the black suit attacks Reed Richards and takes over the Baxter Building, and it kind of then becomes like a shorter version of Web of Shadows, where we go, okay, look, here's all these Marvel characters in the black suit, and Peter's got to stop that and save MJ and all that good Spider-Man stuff, and he and Johnny Storm have to team up to take out Venom, and that's basically the book.
And then what's the big status quo at the end? Since Spider-Man is redeemed and doesn't go off to prison, he in fact goes on trial and gets acquitted.
Hmm. So the black suit kills Reed Richards, and Peter doesn't know how to be Spider-Man anymore, and then Sue comes to him and makes him a member of the Fantastic Four.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's where you're at the end.
And then
You,
something Kingpin's not dead, even though he died earlier, and he's going to become
and
Venom now.
he's gonna be Carnage.
Oh yeah, I guess yeah, he's going to be Carnage. Yeah.
Yeah, he gets the Carnage suit at the end.
Hmm.
Because I guess Reed Richards' Venom creates a whole bunch of symbiotes, and they possess a bunch of heroes in the Marvel Universe, and then you never see Carnage, but one of them that was created was Carnage. I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Because I'm not even really sure how Kingpin gets his hands on that. It really reads like just a MCU after credit scene where you're not supposed to really think about how you got there.
And it's another MCU after credit scene they didn't build off of.
Yeah, exactly. This panel I'm showing you right here, by the way, is the only place where you get the Venom face in the entire book. I really expected, like I said earlier, Spider-Man to go full on Venom, and like even when Reed gets Venomized, it's handled a little bit. There's some pseudoscience where we kind of discuss it differently than characters getting like full on Venomized. This kind of treats it like you have to be, and I don't know if this is really what's intended, but it reads to me like you have to be totally bonded before you would get like the monster phase, because when Reed gets it, he does have kind of a twisted weird monster face, but it's not straight up Venom either.
Hmm. No, he's got he almost has more carnage in him because he's got the red face.
He looks like Voldemort or something.
What? Sorry, you like kind of cut out on
Oh,
my
I'm sorry.
end.
He kind of looks like Voldemort or something.
Yeah, kinda.
Kinda. It was reminding me of something else too, and I can't think of what it is, but
It's like evil Reed Richards if he was just in a fire.
yeah, I wondered if we weren't gonna go to something of a maker place with him,
Hmm.
and then it really was just Venom has taken him over as a vessel. Like
Yeah,
we
it's more
kind of
like a possession thing.
yeah, we do a lot of that with this story. We're talking a lot early on with Peter Parker about his value system and if maybe his dedication to power and responsibility is bad because it gets his friends and family killed. So he really should have an ends based ethics system where the real quote unquote responsibility is to keep his friends alive, and he has to make a choice between who lives and who dies instead of making a choice about whether he'll do the right thing or not. And he ultimately, because he's kind of brainwashed by Venom, is pushed to the point where he starts making those choices, especially after. The Hobgoblin kills Aunt May, and he goes, "Well, I'm gonna decide who lives and dies now." And then eventually, it's decided by pretty much everybody that Spider-Man is not at fault for anything he did because he was full on possessed. And so it isn't that Venom pushed him too far; it is that Venom is just responsible for everything he did. And I have reservations about that.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah, totally.
Venom or I should say the black costume and Spider-Man to me were always a symbiotic relationship, and even if they're not fully bonded and they're kind of talking to each other in their head, it does still feel like Peter is making decisions. Like yeah, he's got this influence certainly, but is he not at least somewhat responsible? Isn't it more of a gray area before it's just straight up? It reads too easy to me. Like the
Hmm.
more I'm thinking about it, it reads like Zaretsky really wants to be able to. He really wants to see just how far he can push things, just how horrible he can make Spider-Man with the black suit, and still be able to redeem him completely and bring him back and let him be a superhero again at the end. And I still think you can get him to that place, but or at least to some degree to that place, but still question who he is a lot more because it's kind of in a lot of, and of course, this story's been adapted 100,000 times, and we often play it like if we let Spider-Man go too far, he'll never come back from it. And in this story, it's just, well, Venom was responsible for all of it. And I'm like, oh, well, if it's that easy, then it wouldn't have been a big deal if he'd actually killed the villains in Spider-Man 3. You know, like I always complained that he basically did, but they happened to survive, so there's just this easy loophole where he's still the hero at the end. This story would say doesn't even matter if they're dead.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And what was I going to say with that? Well, I kind of at a certain point thought we were going to go to a Batman the Imposter place. I don't know if you had this, Cap. I don't know if you remember the ending of that book when we reviewed it. But that's a place where Batman's framed, and then because he's Batman and he's just a man in a mask, you can never really go, oh, well, that wasn't me. Like that was just some other guy wearing my costume. Like he's just forever tainted from that
Yeah,
point. And I
right.
kind of assumed that that's where this would go, and it kind of felt like a cop out that it didn't. But at the same time, I think the
Well,
best scene
Austin,
in the
he was
book.
acquitted. So in
Mhm.
public opinion, I guess nobody's questioned anymore because the law says that he's innocent. That's not how that works. Especially in like, well, I guess you got the sliding time scale, so I don't know if there is an internet in this. Like, I
What
don't know.
I thought it would have been neat to end this book in a place where everyone hates Spider-Man and he's seen as a murderer, and Jameson and the Daily Bugle are like the only places that are like, no, he's a hero, and like that's a fun inversion to kind of end it on. But at the same
Yeah,
time,
that's
I
true.
thought the best scene in the book was the one with him and Sue. So like,
Oh,
you
at the
would
end?
also lose that. I don't know.
You mean the scene at the end?
Yeah.
Well, that's true. Well, just overall, how did you feel about this book? Let's just get real broad with it for a minute, because we were talking back and forth a little bit off camera while we were reading it, and I know you had kind of reservations about where we were starting, and if this really felt like an actual like branch off from the real story.
I would say I'm not feeling it, but it's more indifference than it is straight up dislike. That's kind of where I am. Like, I read it and it was more of like like this isn't great, but it's not like god awful or anything. It feels like a video game plot, I think, for better and worse. Um, you know, I compared it to Web of Shadows earlier, and it does kind of feel like it just becomes a diet Web of Shadows at a certain point.
Yeah, and I've never played that.
Mm-hmm.
I discovered
No.
the other day I have it, so
Oh yeah, you
I
should play
should
it.
I should play that.
It's
Jason
awesome.
was
Get to
wanting to
rip
do that.
Wolverine in half. That game rocks.
Chewbacca's Lover, we'll read your super chat in a second. Let me just say that you're right. Like, structurally, it absolutely feels like a video game plot. It oddly. So I said earlier, ostensibly, this gives you the real estate to like really take your time with a story and flesh stuff out. And one of the things I was disappointed with reading this, and I liked it less on a second read. I was really enjoying it initially, and I'm with you. Like, I didn't hate it. And maybe I even had more fun with it than you did. I can't say I'm indifferent. I'm a little disappointed because as much as I'm saying I guess it was a little bit refreshing that it wasn't just the novelty of Spider-Man murders everyone you've ever heard of, because we went to that place and it felt like we were going to explore that ideology, the like perversion of power and responsibility. It was disappointing to me that he doesn't stay a villain. Actually, like it was kind of developing, I felt, a different story than where we ended up ultimately going, and I found myself wanting this to be Injustice Spider-Man.
I definitely had that.
I thought that's where we were going. You know, Aunt May is the Joker, and I like with Superman, Spider-Man decides he was always wrong about his value system, but his heart is still kind of in the same place where he wants to help people, but now he's really, really misguided with it. Like, wouldn't it have been a lot more interesting to play that out?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where to fall in that, because at the same time, like, it is a little bit refreshing, and like how often we go to the look, it's the hero but evil now, that they do have him come back, but at the same time, like, it does feel like that's not where the story was building.
Yeah, but what makes it less refreshing to me is a lot of what ifs do this.
Well, and that's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about stuff like Injustice and things like that.
But I also wanted, and maybe part of the reason that choice was made was because he only had 5 issues. Like, if this was 10 or 12 or the issues were longer, you'd have more real estate to explore that side of it. Even if he wins back around at the end, I wanted to really play around with that ideology. And maybe the idea would be he's drinking this Kool-Aid that Venom is feeding him, and ultimately he realizes that he's just wrong about it and he's been kind of sold a bill of goods. I just really wanted all that explored.
Yeah, and I guess while we're talking about that, I should throw out the big reason that I find it kind of hard to see this as a what if on the main continuity, which is that it's too informed by adaptations of Spider-Man with the black suit. Like, this is not how the black suit worked originally. The most it did was it made him tired because it like puppeted his body at night.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And every time and to be fair, it is more interesting the way it's played in other media. Like, I think I like the black costume in Venom as an idea a bit more when like it gets in his head and it gives him this kind of like power high. Like, I think it is interesting as a drug metaphor.
I also think we've gone too far with it, though, at this point, where like we just keep pushing it and pushing it.
Sure, but you can take it back to the '90s Spider-Man show. I mean, I didn't go too far with it.
Well, I think the best place that's done it adaptation-wise is probably Spectacular, which kind of merges them. But
That's true. I just haven't watched it in a long time, so I can't speak to that right now. But
well,
I remember that being the case. Yes.
well, that is the coolest thing design-wise, where it starts out as the Spider-Man 3 one, where it's just a color swap, and the more he wears it, the webs dissolve on it, and it becomes the original suit.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about
It's
that.
really
That's
neat.
cool.
Hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was like, I had something to say, and then it blanked. I hesitated too long, and then it deleted.
Well, did you feel that some of the issue of it being a what if of that original story too is just being informed not just by adaptation but by things that come after it? Like that whole thing is awkward to me, where it's like, well, we know that for instance, that we retconned the Hobgoblin's identity, so he's got to be Kingsley, even if were he unmasked in that story in 1984, he would not have been Kingsley.
When Kingsley, I think, is one of the ways in which I'm fine with it, because the Ned Leeds thing is basically a mistake originally, where it was supposed to be Kingsley, and then I think it leaks out, and then they were like, well, we want it to be a surprise, so they changed it.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with just going, okay, like the Hobgoblin's always been Roderick Kingsley, like that's fine. Um, I think the black suit thing for me is weird, because this book both really wants to remind you of that era and also gets things wrong. Like I kind of said this to you off camera, but it reminded me of that way in the HBO Watchmen show, where it's like it's a sequel to the book, but it also gets details wrong, and it like breaks my brain, where I'm like, okay, but if you're gonna go that close, like it's more awkward when you have things that don't exactly fit. Like we go out of our way to go, Peter just dropped out of college, so Aunt May's mad at him, which was the status quo at the time, and the stuff with Mary Jane is right. But then like Aunt May's boyfriend doesn't exist, and like I said, the black suit doesn't play like it does back then. So like some of that I just think is awkward in terms of it
You
being
could
in What If.
you could argue that he does, but he just doesn't show up. But then it's weird that when she dies, there's no mention of him. Like that's strange. Like the fact that
Well,
he's
they
not
live
there
together, yeah.
when Peter shows up, you could easily hand wave that. It's like he's out right then. He's taking a nap. Like who knows? But the fact that and we don't see the funeral, but the fact that there's a funeral, no mention of him, that's strange.
Yeah, exactly.
So you kind of,
so it's just little
it makes you
things.
wonder, like, did Zarsky go back and read the material?
Yeah,
Or,
because
like,
there's
is
other things
he
where I'm
cherry
like,
picking
okay, like that is a
stuff?
pull. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then, like, Black Cat's here, but there's no mention of bad luck powers, and she's dealing with that real hard during this period. And Kingpin is here, and, like, there's no talk about, like, what he did to her.
If anything, we should have had the Puma, because he's the best villain of this era.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
I love Puma. He's great.
So yeah, and then I'm like, because with all the details that are here, it does seem like Zarsky either just knows his stuff pretty well, having not looked at it a long time and forgot a few things, or he did look at it, but you're right, and it is the HBO Watchmen thing, or maybe a little bit less so. And what he's doing is he's truncating what he has to and simplifying some things, so that he can then go where he wants to and do it in his 5 issues. And that's, again, where it feels like, weirdly, there's not enough real estate.
Yeah, well, and I guess the other thing with the black suit for me is that it tries to have its cake and eat it too, where it goes like, I'm just so annoyed because I'm just really tired, because that's like what the suit was originally, like, just making him tired. But I don't know, like he brings it up way too much, and they also don't explain anything around that. It's like it plays much more like he's tired because the suit's draining him, and making him darker. Like it just kind of, I don't know, it's just awkward, I thought.
Yeah, and
Also,
then the
because you have to handle
Hobgoblin
up.
thing is
Oh, sorry.
then the Hobgoblin thing is the other element that makes it a little bit awkward, where he just shows up out of nowhere before I think he does in that story. And of course, like, he's been kind of the big main antagonist lately when you go back and you look at those issues. And again, it's been a while, and I thumbed through a few things, but I didn't read all of it for this. But if memory serves, and tell me if I'm wrong, folks, Spider-Man goes and deals with Hobgoblin in that story after Reed Richards takes the suit and puts it in a jar or whatever. And here, Hobgoblin just shows up and he fights him. And so, like, it seems like the diverging point is, for some reason, there's a Hobgoblin fight that never happened. That didn't happen because of any different choice Spider-Man made. So, like, it does feel like you're already in, like, a universe once removed. And, like, I'm splitting hairs with that, but you called it What If, not Elseworlds. And of course, that's copyright, that's DC. But you know what I'm saying? Like, this isn't supposed to be just a like really different alternate universe. It's supposed to be a what if where somebody makes a decision and then things change, and it doesn't read like that.
Yeah, and I guess at the same time, like, it feels like we're just complaining about, like, fan nitpicky stuff, but at the same time, like, I don't know that there's actually, like, enough to this story that it's, kind of drawing me away from that.
Yeah, I've got that too. And there's just some kind of sloppy stuff here and there. Like, one question I would ask you, sorry, I'll get to Super Chats in a minute. One question I would ask you, Austin, is do you buy the switch that happens, and I don't know where I land on it. I've been trying to decide this all day. Do you buy the switch that happens with Jameson at the point where he realizes that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, where he automatically says, "Oh, you must not be responsible for any of this. It was all Venom, all or it was all the alien costume the whole time."
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think because I kind of went back and forth on it, and I think part of me is more okay with it because he has had a relationship with Peter for so long at this point. But like I said, like I'm also back and forth on it. Like, I don't fully know where to fall on it.
Wouldn't you think at the very least he would go, "Well, I have hated Spider-Man all this time," and because he has this really good speech in the first issue about how Spider-Man was always, like, yes, maybe he was going out and helping people, but he was always a stone's throw away from being power mad and crazy. And look, I was right all along. Now he's finally crossed the line. He was trying not to step over it. I always knew he would. He crossed the line. And then at the point where, and like, again, I'm conflicted because I like that he's reasonable. He's like, well, there's an alien influence, and it turns out to be a person I know and respect and trust. But I would think at the very least he would go, well, maybe I didn't know Peter Parker the way I thought I did. And at least ask some questions. I don't know. It's too easy. And I don't mean to be a broken record, but that's one of the things that makes it feel like, well, I just don't have enough space to tell the story I want to tell. So I got to make that happen real
right.
It plays like what?
The Martha thing from BVS, where it's like, oh, you're humanized now, so I'm fully okay with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how it reads to me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So another thing that I just wished was handled with a little bit more delicacy.
Yep. And since we have him in panel, Doc Ock, the thing with Doc Ock is so lame, and it feels like Zdarsky only did it because he thought of the joke Brock Ock.
Yep.
Which is so dumb.
And very modern Marvel, man. That's very, like, house style Marvel right now, where you come up with a cute pun and that you can market merchandise and comic covers with, and now Brock Ock has to be a thing. And he says at one time, in a really awkward place where I don't even think Jameson would be joking about that, like, in that moment where it's real forced, where he's just like, oh, like, Brock Ock. It's like, oh, that's okay. So that's his name now. We got to give him a thing. That's another place where it doesn't really read like a what if, because there's no diverging point that would get Eddie Brock to this place. He's just there.
Yeah,
like Eddie Brock was never a Doc Ock henchman, and in this he's just like I guess he's infiltrated Doc Ock's laboratory and he's wearing a henchman suit and Doc Ock doesn't know it and then he just murders him. And this also has that thing where
And
you
how
can,
does he get the arms?
because he murdered Doc Ock and he stole them.
But they're like fused into Doc Ock. Like, how did he get them?
Don't ask questions. It's only 5 issues. You don't have enough space to.
Brock Ock.
Brock Ock. Yeah, that's all you need to know. But isn't it genius? Like you have to give him that he's got the because it rhymes, Austin. So you have to give it to him.
So much fun, Jan.
No, it really feels like again that Gwenpool thing where it's like, well, this is maybe going to catch on and it's going to be everywhere and we can sell like, we can milk it forever and do 100,000 spin-offs and
it's going to be an SDCC exclusive Funko Pop.
Yeah, Brock Ock.
Brock Ock.
And I don't want to see What If being used for that. I mean, like the cartoon show has the same problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
where it's
for
like,
sure.
Just what variants, to use the MCU lingo now, like what variants can we come up with that we can then sell merchandise for and turn into new comic characters that will show up in all these Spider-Verse books and cross into everything. And sometimes they're cool and clever. But I'm just saying that it's really gimmicky to make a thing just to produce those, and this is better than that. But when you introduce something like Brock Ock, who's just there also because it's Eddie Brock and he's got to be in a Venom story, it's like, but you got to come up with a less contrived way to get him in here because that's not where he was in the continuity. So like you might as well have lots more things be different at the beginning of your story to make it clear to me that we're in a completely different parallel universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just don't think Eddie Brock should even be here.
I don't either. And it also feels like it's there to have a big, exciting reveal at the end of an issue. Oh my God, Eddie Brock's here! Like, I'm so shocked.
He's one of Doc Ock's master planner henchmen.
Yeah.
Were we even doing anything with the master planner stuff in the 80s?
I don't
remember.
I don't remember either. So I thought
in the Stan Lee run, but
I meant to say this a minute ago, and then I promise I'll read the super chat. I meant to say this earlier, and I started to get into this point, and then I went off with myself, which I never do. That was a first. Austin was talking about how this is built like a video game plot. The second time I read it, I had this realization, Austin. This actually reads to me like a DC direct-to-video adaptation of a classic superhero story.
Oh, okay.
It's like Hush, where you do basically the same story, but everybody knows the ending, so you got to do some kind of crazy twist. Right? It's like that.
Yeah.
So, like, with Hush, the big crazy twist was, it was Riddler all along. Or they did it with Gotham by Gaslight, where, spoilers for these things, but you get to the end of the Gotham by Gaslight movie, and, well, that's a mystery. This isn't exactly a mystery, but, like, that's a mystery, and if you've read the book, you know what the ending is. So we got to make it something else you won't see coming, so we'll throw Gordon under the bus. He was the bad guy all along. This kind of reads like that to me, where we have to have a big, exciting twist, and then, but you set status quo more or less back where it is by the end. Yeah, some major characters die. You're never going to come back to this again anyway, or if you do, it's not going to be very often. But like, Spider-Man still gets to be Spider-Man at the end. And the big, like, fight with all of the Venomized Avengers and all of that feels like the big third act climax you would do in an animated movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. That's why I had, and obviously you said you hadn't played this, but with Web of Shadows, that game's very gimmicky in the way that this book is, but it's a video game, so you go like whatever, like Brock Ock is dumb, but I get to kick his ass in a boss fight.
It's got that dual purpose, yeah.
Yeah, so like, it'll go like here fight Vulture, and then later on in the game it's like here's Venom Vulture, like fight him. Here's Black Cat, here's Venom Black Cat, like all the you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it only gets away with it because it's a video game, and like it just exists for that gimmicky thing. It's the same reason why I think one of the only Spider-Verse things that works is Shadow Dimensions, because it's different types of gameplay, as opposed to like really telling a story, and it can kind of get away with that a little bit.
There's a much better reason for the gimmick. It's fun. It's just fun to play in an interactive experience.
Yeah, exactly. It's more about that. So you're willing to give it a pass. Where you're like, okay, Venomized Wolverine is stupid, but I get to rip him in half, and that's cool.
Well, and here to make the climax bigger, we have to come up with some kind of a cheat so that Venom can do things it's not supposed to be able to do, which also feels very video game, because
we have to make enemies.
Yeah, and well, sure, but also just we want Venom to be able to possess everybody. Well, he can't do that all at one time. He's not able to stretch like that. So how's he going to do that? Well, we'll use Mr. Fantastic as a plot device and say something. He takes. Help me out. What is it? Not unstable molecules. What's the?
Oh, I didn't remember them saying like a specific thing. I thought they were just like, I scienced it, and now I'm.
I'll try to find it, but it's like a molecule that Reed Richards developed, and I can't remember the name. It's not. It's the other thing that he does that's not Pym particles. And they say
so unstable molecules.
Maybe it is unstable molecules. I said that and I thought I was wrong. Maybe it was that. And
that is Reed Richards.
Okay, it must be that. And he uses that in conjunction with the Venom symbiote to birth new symbiotes that he can like something. The unstable molecules allow Venom through Reed Richards. So not really a combined personality, just Venom through Reed Richards. Like it's not really a symbiotic relationship. Can control all of the symbiotes because he's using unstable. That's as video game as it gets.
Well, it's so video gamey that this has been basically the plot of 3 video games at this point. Because the Dreamcast Spider-Man has an army of symbiotes that Doc Ock has. And then Web of Shadows has Venom doing exactly this, and then the new Insomniac Spider-Man has Venom do this. Like, it's so video gamey.
It's already
tired in video games.
Yeah, so that's fair. And I'm sure we go to it tons in more recent comics too, because we've done like multiple Venom verses now. Like, you can't tell. Like, we've been coming up with every excuse possible to have Venom take over everybody you've ever heard of. There's a cover right now where he possesses Godzilla.
Well, and there was, I think it was last year, they did all the Venomized Funko Pops. I don't know if you saw those, where it was like, here's all these Marvel characters that are Venomized.
It must be the second time they've done it, because they did that 3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, well, I think they did another wave of it.
Yeah.
They're all like the laziest designs, where it's just like, here's Mr. Fantastic, he's got like a Venomized.
I'll say occasionally they're really cool designs, but for the most part, yeah, they're kind of lazy with that.
But like, it is definitely a thing that they're kind of doing because the people buy it.
Yeah. Well, let me read these super chats
like
real quick.
I'm more cynical now talking about
I know.
it
It's not holding up talking about it.
Because reading it, I was like, this is just kind of nothing.
Well, I thought Zarsky had, for the most part, a pretty good grasp on the voices for everybody and the way they might have spoken in that period, for the most part.
I don't have it with the period, but I do think like his voices for characters are pretty good.
Occasionally, somebody would jump out and say a thing that I thought was very, very modern. Like when Mary Jane's first introduced, and she's like, "Peter, what the hell?" I'm like, "Yeah, 1984. Mary Jane's not going to talk like that." I'm not saying nobody in a comic book said that in 1984. I'm saying that character doesn't say that in 1984.
She even whips out a gun, like the shotgun she has in Web of Shadows.
And his Kingpin reads exactly like 90s cartoon Kingpin, but I'm not going to complain about that. I loved that voice. I thought it was exactly that voice.
Well, now I want to know if his Daredevil run Kingpin talks like that.
I hope so. I haven't read that yet. I'm going to jump on that stat, though, if that's the case. And what's really funny is he basically has... I just remembered this. He basically has my favorite 90s Kingpin speech from the Spot episode, where he says the destruction of the planet is bad for business. When he goes, my operation can handle a 5% like decrease or discrepancy, but it cannot handle. And then we jump to a whole other panel, and he just goes, my death, and I'm like, yes.
Apparently it can, because he can come back.
Yeah, I mean, the panel where he dies, I get that Kingpin is very, very rich. How the hell does he come back from... I'm Mary Jane right now. What the hell? How does he come back from, like, symbiote tentacle through his chest, must have taken out every organ? I'll go find that panel. You don't come back from that.
Well, I think he, like, punches his face off.
No, it goes right through his midsection.
Oh, is it through his chest? Okay.
I'm going to double check, but that's what I remember.
I also feel like I thought it was his face, because when he comes back, he's got, like, a mouth thing.
That's because he needs help breathing.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But
I think he passed it.
Where the hell?
There was one shot where he was standing with Kingpin, and it's in that scene.
Oh, is it? Okay. Sorry. I'm flipping around everywhere here.
Oh, yeah, there... it's a little hard to tell.
It is hard to tell. Sorry, it is hard to tell. I thought it was through his midsection. Now I can't tell. Maybe it is his jaw.
Yeah, because I assumed he, like, punched his face in.
Well, and his glasses come off. Okay,
but that also could happen if he got punched in the chest.
That's true. You wouldn't hit a guy with glasses,
Chip
would you?
Zdarsky, if you're watching this, please comment below and tell us.
Tell us what it is.
What does it say in the script?
We're the artist. We haven't actually named him yet.
Oh, yeah, and Braden
Pascal Ferry.
Says
I'm not familiar with.
Symbiote plot is also in that Disney Toys to Life game.
Oh, is it?
We just keep going there.
Which is funny because my kids just got that out again, and they've been playing that.
Oh, nice.
And Jason just got the Spider-Man level, which we didn't have before, but he just started playing it, so we haven't gotten to what the big plot is yet.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I'm not familiar with this artist. I like the art in this. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think it's all right. It's pretty good.
A little watercolory.
Yeah.
Chewbacca's Lover, $10 super chat. I hate how in What Ifs they make all this crazy crap happen that wouldn't happen. They only do all that stuff because it's not canon, but no serious person believes that would happen. Cringe. And I did have that a little bit with this, where it's like, well, we can take this person out because we're in another continuity, and everybody feels a lot more expendable. And I just thought it was too easy. And I thought it was easy from the moment that Spider-Man takes off the Hobgoblin mask, because I'm like, that was the biggest mystery for the longest time with Spider-Man. Is he just making a joke with it, where it's like, and then one panel he just pulls his mask off and now we know who it is, like, move on. But that just seems so easy, where it's almost maybe a little too self-aware about stuff that's silly in Spider-Man comics, because you have the sorry, I'm jumping around, but you have the same thing too with the moment where Jameson looks at Brock and he's like, Spider-Man didn't actually have anything to do with you getting fired, right? Like, I don't really understand why you're so upset with him. And I mean, I did kind of like that as a parallel to those two characters, where maybe in that moment Jameson's getting a little self-aware and realizing that he's doing the same thing with Spider-Man, which might get him a little bit closer to believing that Spider-Man is not to blame. But I don't fully believe that, which is why I want Jameson to not fully believe that. Mm-hmm. But yes, everybody's too expendable.
Yes. Well, and then my two favorite Spider-Man villains get killed with no
fanfare?
No fanfare. Mysterio and Scorpion.
Well, I thought the most egregious thing was Mr. Fantastic.
Well, the most egregious thing is 100% when Spider-Man goes, the Shocker, like a D-tier villain no one likes, and Scorpion not much better. And I'm like...
Well, in that moment, I thought this is where you were going to go. I was like, oh, I know why Shocker's here. Shocker's here because of the 90s cartoon memes.
Yeah, but then he's just there to have his arm ripped off, and Scorpion gets vague body parts ripped off, but I couldn't tell what they were.
Yeah, you had to look really close when Spider-Man brings through the Kingpin before Kingpin's midsection or maybe jaw gets taken out
I
two
guess that's the
panels
thing
later.
Kingpin and Scorpion have in common is I can't fully tell what he broke.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't help that the villain that Spider-Man kills to send them all a message at first glance looks too much like Mysterio.
Oh, it's the Beetle.
The Beetle? Yeah, at first I was like, wait, how is Mysterio dead? He's alive right underneath that bed. Oh, it's the Beetle!
Well, I was kind of confused by that because he's like, oh, I killed the Beetle and he sold out.
He does
where all the
mention it
villains
earlier,
were.
but just in a second, like
Mhm.
because the colors are the same.
Yeah,
But I'm sorry, why are you confused about it?
because the Beetle's not part of their plan, so I was just kind of unsure how he was able to sell out their location. Like he's not in that early setup of we're getting the team together. So I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
why does the Beetle know where these guys are hanging out?
that's a really good point. I don't
Just
know.
because he's evil?
Yeah, and it's like you don't need to use a D-list villain to kill because you're killing the A-list ones,
Mhm.
just fine. But yeah, I thought it was really egregious to kill Mr. Fantastic the way he does because it's like, oh, I don't need him anymore, and then Venom just like murders him there on the spot. But everybody else comes out unscathed because Zarsky has a very specific status quo he wants to get to at the end. So it's like Reed had to die right then so that we could have a real clean Fantastic Four at the end where Spider-Man takes Reed's place. And again, some of these things just seemed like a little sloppy to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we're writing to a place before we're actually getting there.
I can see an argument for it. Like, I can see somebody coming back and going, oh, but Cap, like, it's just, if Venom's done with him, he doesn't care anymore, so he's just gonna kill him. Like, of course he'd do that. But that's one of those things where everybody feels too expendable.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's supposed to be subverting that. It's either the first Venom or the second Venom story. The one where Peter does use the like, well, I just want you back, and the suit comes off Eddie and goes to Peter, and he captures it. I think it's supposed to be a subversion of that scene.
Oh. Okay.
Except he kills Mr. Fantastic.
What do you think of the kind of like spider face design we're going with this, where Peter kind of gets his own Venom costume, but he doesn't do the full on face, but it's got like the dots like a spider?
Yeah, I think the weird thing for me is I didn't realize that's what it was at first. I thought we were just kind of building to it, and then we didn't. So, like, in the moment, I was like, okay, this is like the prototype Venom suit. But I think it's fine.
Yeah, I actually like it. I just kind of think it's odd that he never goes full on Venom face, because I get the idea that they haven't bonded, but at the point where Venom, where the symbiote can convince Peter to murder like 11 different people, I would think you'd be pretty well bonded at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would think so.
It's kind of weird that he's able to do all of that and not bonded, which is some of where I can't decide if I'm buying the idea that he can come fully back from this.
Hmm.
And doesn't every single person that gets bonded with Venom go full Venom face? And these days, immediately you've got a Venom face because everybody wants to draw it, right? But it's kind of weird that he's a murderer and doesn't have the monster face.
Mm-hmm. I guess I can be happy with that because, like, I'm not like a Venom person, but
No, I know you're not.
my preferred Venom design is the original one where he doesn't have the tongue.
Yeah.
So I guess I can be happy that.
Yeah, but he should at least have the teeth. He should at least have his mouth open.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But then we also get I'm being a lot harder on this than I expected I would be.
Yeah, I think
I enjoyed it more while I was reading it, but I'm poking a lot of holes in it. I also think that he gets a little fast and loose with the identity stuff with Venom. With like, at what point does Venom and a host become a shared consciousness?
Well, I feel like that's just modern Venom in general. Like the movies have that issue too.
Yeah, but again,
Like,
it's supposed to be a what if, and he's trying really hard to make it feel like that period. So it's odd to me that I there are weird random places where the symbiote will refer to them as we, like right around the same time as saying I, and I can never decide why. So it's not just a fully bonded thing, because there's also places where he's in Peter but says we,
mhm.
but he doesn't always do that. And then when he gets Reed, it's all I.
Yeah, because it's not even a symbiosis when he gets Reed. It's just straight up possession.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why he wouldn't want to full on possess Reed.
One, like, I don't
But
know, is that a thing that the symbiote can do, or it can just straight up possess people as opposed to just being a symbiote?
I didn't think so. You remember the Venom movie has that problem where it's like
Like I said,
it
it's a
takes over a
modern Venom
person
issue.
and it has to like perfectly match biologically somehow, or the person dies. But then weirdly sometimes it can just possess a dog. I don't really know why it can do that. So anyway, I'm a little fuzzy on some of the rules. I mean, like maybe because I realize that it's very picky, and you know your goals probably have to align with it some. So maybe it wouldn't want to merge with Reed. Like maybe that was kind of a poor point that I made, but I'm not really sure how it's possessing him, unless again something unstable molecules. But then he had to possess him to make that happen in the first place. So how does that work? And if he can't just full on possess you, why is he working so hard on Peter? Why not just make him do stuff?
Cap, I think you're missing a very important thing, which is Brock Ock. It's
Oh.
done because it is.
Do you think we give Kraven as much panel time as we do because of Kraven's last hunt?
Oh, 100%, but then he never comes back, and I thought that was weird. Like, he doesn't die, and he doesn't come back.
I would have thought we would have done more with him.
I thought it was weird that Doc Ock was like, Kraven, you're taking point on this because this is what you do, but Doc Ock's like the leader and the like master planner. I thought that was a little strange. That's like whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I like that Jameson goes full villain for a minute.
And he gets to wear the
Spider Slayer.
Suit. Yeah,
that's cool.
It's not the same design, but I was like, oh, cool, that's here. Because when he shows up in this villain team, I was like, okay, but he's just Jameson. He's got a broken hand.
Oh, yeah, good call. Because Spider-Man was like, I'm going to come back and break your other hand.
I'm going to break your goddamn back.
Does it not feel... You may not have this, Austin, but I just... Again, I feel like the ending does not ultimately match the story that we started with. It's like, why does this go so gruesome if ultimately we're going to redeem Spider-Man at the end? Like, what point is even being made with that beyond just it's supposed to be fun in the moment to see those things happen? Like, it's really bloody for a Spider-Man that ultimately comes back from it. And doesn't...
I mean,
does he have...
Like, pops in Hobgoblin's eyes.
Yeah.
Like I said at the beginning, like it's just that shock value thing of we're in a different universe, we can get away with this stuff. So...
I just feel like it should mess him up more at the end. Like, not just he should like it's weird to do that if he doesn't like stay bad, but like by the end, emotionally, Peter Parker should have a really hard time coming back from that.
Yeah. No, like I said earlier,
I'm just in the Fantastic Four now.
I fully expected this to go the Batman the Imposter way, where there is no coming back from this.
Yeah.
Especially because, again, like it's its own universe. Like, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's over.
Well, that's where I get cynical with it, where I'm like, well, that tells me they think they're going to make more because they think this is going to sell real hard.
Yeah.
Or they're hoping it will. I guess at least Spider-Man didn't have a bag on his head at the end. They could have done that.
Oh, they would have been way better if he had the bag and the kick me sign. Bombastic Bagman is like a
and then he goes
Spider-Man costume.
No,
get out of here.
No, I love it. I'm just saying, would it fit in this though?
It fits in everything. It could show up in Avengers Secret Wars, and I'll be happy.
No, I would legitimately love that, but It won't fit. Dan Schneider, we did talk about this, but I'll read it real quick. $5 super chat. The '90s cartoon is where the symbiote making Peter darker comes from. That's what I was talking about earlier when Austin says like we've taken it too far now. I'm like, well, you can start where they did and kind of stay there. He says that's not in the comics. The '90s brings that in, and other adaptations follow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It became more of like The Ring, where like it's just slowly devolving him.
At the same time, if you're going to go back and do a what if story now after all of the history we've had with the symbiote, and it's supposed to feel like it's in continuity, but we've, diverged somewhere, doesn't it have to maybe be informed by that idea later, because so many later comics are informed by that idea? I mean, that's where it gets kind of difficult, right? Is like, well, if the black costume takes over somebody now, it gets in their head and makes them do, think about doing evil things. So like, how do you do that story now without just disregarding? And he's not disregarding decades of continuity later, because he does the Kingsley thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really makes you ask the question of what the purpose of the story is, I think, from a what-if perspective.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. You're like, are you
the
trying
answer
to be
is
authentic
Brock Ock.
to that, or are you not? Yeah, the answer is Brock Ock. when in doubt, Brock Ock.
Bob the Hun, $2 super chat. Chip Zdarsky is writing Batman now. Isn't that sad? From what little I read of it, I don't want to say sad, but it wasn't anything I cared. It read very fanficky.
Well, I think to an extent it is kind of sad, just because people really loved his Daredevil. So when he was announced as Batman, I think a lot of people were really excited.
Yeah. He was announced as Batman?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Chip Zdarsky is Batman.
He's going to play Batman?
Yeah. He's Batman in Cape Crusader.
I don't know if you know that. That's how we make comics now. We mocap people. We cast them, and then we mocap them, and then they write and draw the book. That's...
Mm-hmm. Well, we mocap their likeness into a system, and then we AI the art.
But yeah, to weird inconsistencies you mentioned, since we're just talking on this for no reason, I guess, because I liked this while I was reading it more. There was one weird bit I wanted to mention. I sent Austin a picture of this earlier. Again, just wondering, like, how long it's been since Zdarsky's gone back to some of this stuff. If he just made a weird choice and he just wasn't being thoughtful about it. There's one place where Peter in Internal Monologue is talking about the night that Uncle Ben died, and he brings up the robber.
Mm-hmm.
And the man that kills Uncle Ben is always unequivocally referred to as the burglar. Always. Like, capital B, trademark next to it, burglar. Say that again?
It said, and even in this book, they call him the burglar outside of that one point.
Wait, really?
I think so.
I never noticed him. I don't think he's brought up anywhere else.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's.
He was just referred to as the robber. And I was like, when has he ever been called that?
So maybe I saw that panel and my brain filled it in, because I was like, well, no, it's the burglar.
I didn't catch it until a second read.
Mm-hmm. To be fair. Maybe that's what I had.
But looking back on it, I was like, wait a minute. When does he ever call him that?
I think it's Spider-Man Annual 1 has that big, like, they do, like, all the main villains up to that point is, like, a big full-page spread. Like, here's, like, a little poster page of them. And you have, it's, like, Green Goblin, Sandman, Doc Ock, the Burglar. Like, 100% it is the Burglar TM.
It is, yeah. I had a trading card as a kid, the Burglar.
Mm-hmm.
And he famously never had a name.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they've given him one by this point.
Sandman.
You know, and I was going to say, and it's not Flint Marko. Austin, what else do you want to talk about with this?
I don't know, like, I feel like we have gone through a lot of it.
Well, we're at an hour. I mean, we might as well wrap up. But
as I said, like, a big thing I had reading it was more so indifference than anything. Like, I feel like I'm a lot more negative talking to you about it, just because now we have to really analyze and talk about elements of it. While reading it, it was like, oh, this is happening.
It's inoffensive. I mean, you know,
it's
a fun Spider-Man comic that disappointed me because it didn't go where it felt like it should, but I didn't, I didn't hate all that stuff at the end. It was
Spider-Man in the last 20 years. This is nowhere near the bottom.
sure. Oh, I had a little plot question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know why, but I'm not totally sure. When in the first issue, like just a few pages in, Peter is swinging around with a black costume, and his symbiote like web shooters or whatever stop working. Like he can't shoot webs, and he's like, "Well, this is weird. I don't have." I mean, I said symbiote. He doesn't have web shooters. It's just the symbiote. And he's like, "Well, this is weird. Like why is that not working?" And he keeps talking about it like there's a big reason, and it never comes up again. And was it just because they're swinging toward an explosion and the symbiote doesn't like fire? Like, is that all it is?
No, he's swinging towards reeds to get it studied, and I think the symbiote's like, "Oh, he's trying to get rid of me," and then just turns his webbing off. I think.
But then later he goes to Reed, and the symbiote, I guess, just gives up and lets him web there because
he took a cab.
He took an Uber. It was fine.
Exactly. That's how you know this book really isn't in line with back then, because they didn't have Uber in the 80s. Get out of here, Zdarsky.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I do appreciate that he's not trying to really modernize anything in this.
Mm-hmm. No, that is true. We even go back to some of those 80s designs. Like we have Silver Centurion for Iron Man.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that, actually. And you've got the 80s Cyclops costume, which I always really liked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of that was neat.
Because Captain America shows up with, like, a ragtag band of whoever he can find.
Whoever was lame enough to show up.
Show up, yeah. And then they all stood around for a picture that nobody took. But, I thought it was really interesting that Captain America is like, this is my fault. I've not paid enough attention to what Peter's been doing in this black costume. But like, that never comes up again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I take responsibility. Okay, Captain America. Like, it felt like Captain America post AVX, where it's like, there's been this big mutant problem for decades. And I stayed completely out of that and kind of pretended like it wasn't a thing. But now I'm going to pay attention to it.
Oh crap, he's killing people. I gotta take responsibility for this now.
Time to catch up. RJ Godzilla, the burglar has been retconned into being Black Cat's father. I didn't know that. He says, I don't know if that's been retconned out, though.
Yeah, I don't remember how that falls in the comics. I know that's what Spectacular does with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's an episode where they go into prison together, and she's like, "You got to help me with my father," and he goes in, and it's the burglar, and it's a pretty good episode.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. It just feels like the New York City has a lot of people in it. Like it just, the world feels too small when you do that. But
yeah,
then
no, I prefer the burglars being somebody that Peter never like figures out who it is, but. For that show, like in that episode, I think it's fun.
Yeah, like it's maybe more okay in a TV show because you know if you want to create some new kind of soap opera situations, when you do it in comics, it comes off more like, well, maybe even in a show a little bit, just because you're trying to do something new, right? It comes off like, well, we've had decades and decades of these legacy characters that we can't let die and that we're not going to fully retcon their histories, so you can never ultimately end up with a random person on the street that creates your tragic backstory. Eventually, it is always going to be a conspiracy. You're at this point, you're not gonna have very often anyway. Joe Chill just be a guy anymore. Like, he's always going to be, it's going to be a hitman that had to kill Bruce Wayne's parents because they were involved in organized crime or something, and they weren't as above board as we thought they were, or the Court of the Owls was behind it, or like, there's always going to be some kind of conspiracy now with Joe Chill. He can't just be a guy.
At least the Batman's like, maybe, who knows.
Yeah, I appreciated that. I still can't decide if I like that we even felt the need to go there, if we weren't going to fully go there, but at least it wasn't. And like, I haven't hated it when we've done that in other places, but I recognize how we get there, which is just, we're trying to shake it up. We're trying to do something different and not just tell the exact same story over and over again. But
as the great Taylor Swift said, sometimes you just gotta shake it off.
the so did well, never mind. Anyway, I was gonna go somewhere pointless.
That like really threw you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. No, you did. I can't remember what I was gonna say.
Oof. Anyways, good night, everybody.
But yeah, I don't know. People might enjoy this more than I did, and like after I've talked about it, like maybe just read it, and you know. I don't want to ever say like don't think too much about a thing, but I'm having this weird experience with this where I'm like, oh, now I've talked about it. I didn't like this as much.
No, but I mean, I can understand somebody reading this and being like, this is like a fun story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I enjoyed reading it. Like I don't fault anyone for thinking that.
I think a lot of people really enjoyed this, and I mean, I get that on a first read I did too, and then I started like, thinking about doing my job with it.
It just makes me want to play Web of Shadows because that game's awesome.
Oh, what I was gonna say a minute ago, and then we'll get going about Batman and Spider-Man and all of these big popular characters is that it's really easy, and I would say maybe even almost impossible not to eventually get to a place where in the continuity of the stories you're telling, the character becomes just as important or more so as they feel in real life as a fictional character. Where you get to a place where the whole world revolves around that character, or they become like too much of a Jesus figure, where they started as just a person that is like unique and maybe special in some way, but not like this iconic godlike figure. And it's happened with Batman now, where with like Morrison, he takes him back in time and he's dropping all these breadcrumbs through history, and now literally the DC universe seems to revolve around Batman. Spider-Man's got the spider totem thing. Now he's got his own multiverse, basically, of Spider-Men. Like, we did it to Spock. We did it to Darth Vader. We've done it to everybody.
I call it Darth Vader / Boba Fett syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, good night, everybody.
Yeah, bye, everybody.
Everybody, thanks a lot for watching. We sure appreciate it. Next time, and we're gonna have to take next week off because I'm out of town again. But when we come back, we'll be coming back for a good long time again, regularly, and we're gonna be tackling a classic film, Austin, a classic film that I have
classic picture.
Yeah, a picture, and this is from a period where you really can't say picture. John Early, from some requests that he gave me a long time ago. I've still got at least one of these left. Rear Window. We're finally gonna watch. Yeah, so that'll be great.
Very good.
So join us to talk about a classic picture.
That old Alfie Hitchcock.
Probably the movie with the most movie posters that come up in random characters' bedrooms in films.
Weird.
Like, I see the Rear Window poster a lot in random movies.
That's got to be the best Guinness Book of World Records record.
It maybe it isn't that at this point. Maybe there's like I think Pulp Fiction is one that comes up a lot these days. Star Wars, yeah.
Maybe Ghostbusters. I feel like Evil Dead shows up a lot, and The Thing shows up a lot.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, I feel like I see that pop up in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of horror.
Yeah, well, and with Star Wars and Ghostbusters, like sometimes it's just period pieces, right? It's just like that's how you like remind your audience we're in the 80s.
Well, and that's what The Thing is you go, look, we're in the 80s, and this character likes creepy things. He has a The Thing poster. Exactly.
Well, anyway,
yep.
Austin, thanks for doing it with me, man. And we'll see you again real soon, guys. We're flipping days this week because of schedules that came out of alignment. So tomorrow night, Austin and I are going to be doing the rewind commentary on Mask of Zorro. And then Friday night, I'm going to be doing the Captain Logan show with Jason again because DJ is out of town this week. So we're flipping Thursday and Friday. But join us for more shows, and then I'm out of town all next week. And I'm coming back Saturday real quick before we, well, not real quick, but before I go out of town to finally knock out X-Men '97. We're gonna do kind of a broad discussion the first season of that with Jason and John. So come in and hang out with us. And in the meantime, I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin the Day Ghost.
Yeah, see ya, folks.
Bye, everybody.